You're listening to We Deepen Media.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder and CEO of We Deepen Feminine Weapon, and also a certified professional coach. We Deepen's mission is to inspire more meaningful, loving relationships. We do that by curating the top social and transformational experiences that help people to have more meaningful, loving relationships. And we also have a private matchmaking and relationship coaching division for anyone who maybe is a busy professional or entrepreneur, or, most of us didn't grow up observing healthy relationships, and our educational curriculum completely neglects the subject. So if you're willing to say, hey, I could use some support in this most important area of life, definitely go to wedeepen.com, check out the events. You can actually sign up and become a member of the, what I like to call society, because it's communities of communities inside of there, the system. And you will receive an email every Thursday with a weekly roundup, a digest, all the things that are happening, all the events and such. And in 2023, there's going to be much more there to share with you, from courses to new events, festivals, experiences, other podcasts. And I'm super excited to be rolling into the future with you. If you do enjoy this podcast, please do like, subscribe, follow, give it 5 stars. It helps me to continue to record it and also helps more people to find it. Share it with a friend. So today, I am going to catch up with an old friend. We actually both went to the same college, Towson University in Maryland, and we worked together on a project, I guess, nearly 10, 15 years or so ago. Oh, well, you've worked on it longer than that, since 1998. David Seth Cohen is a filmmaker, dear friend, a creative being. He is now a film festival winner. Finding Sandler, the film that we worked on together, was recently rated Best Feature Film at which film festival was that, David?
The Great Canadian Comedy Film Festival.
Oh, the Great Canadian Comedy Film Festival. And also, because I know a lot of our listeners are based in the Los Angeles area. You were there in Culver City recently and that film festival, and have making your way around. And congratulations, because talk about resilience, and that's probably going to be the title of this podcast. You have the greatest stamina to stick by something and to be so consistent through the trials and tribulations of creating something, and not in it for the instant gratification, but the long-term fulfillment. And I know that film, when you had the vision to create it, I imagine you probably didn't think it was going to take 20 years.
No, I didn't. I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. It's easy. I'll have it done in a year. We'll get it out there. And just nothing goes according to plan, especially when you're doing a documentary.
Yeah. And they say too, is like, that's actually probably one of the greatest. If you know too much, you might not have started from the beginning.
I might have started it anyway. Look, my goal in life, when I realized what I want to do with myself, because in Towson, when we went, I was actually pre-law. I was taking political science classes, and it was junior year, and I had taken an elective, a film class as an elective. And that same semester, one of my old friends passed away. He was 20 at the time. This guy, Brad Stoll. He was in a movie called Lost in Yonkers. He played like the older brother and narrated the movie. It was like a Columbia Pictures big studio film. Neil Simon wrote the script. And that kind of just motivated me to change my major and to go after something that I loved and to follow a dream of mine. And that was to make a movie. So it took a lot longer than I had hoped to, get a movie made. But like the cool part about it is, not only did I produce it, direct it, co-wrote it, co-edited it, but I'm also in the movie. So, it was definitely a long journey, but, now being able to see people in a theater watching it at a festival, for example, and a good crowd, watching them react to the film, like laughing at spots where, we always hoped that they would laugh, and like kind of tearing up at spots where we had hoped that they would kind of get emotional. It's all worth it. Mm.
So you and we went to Towson together, but you were a few years older than I was. Maybe we had a connection here or there, but then we became Facebook friends.
Yes.
And about a decade ago, or say, let's say 12 years or so ago, you had reached out to me on Facebook to share about the film. And this was around the time, I guess it was probably
2012, or maybe 2013. It was one of those.
Crowdfunding was like the new hot thing.
Yeah. And Kickstarter.
You were doing a Kickstarter program to raise funding to complete the film Finding Sandler. And when you told me the story, first off, your passion for what you're working on was so contagious. And you enrolled me. You did a phenomenal job enrolling me into your vision. And you had a Kickstarter goal of about 20,000.
It was 35,000.
Oh, it's 35. We did 35,000.
We did more. We did I think we ended up going like almost 10% over, because people also that didn't want to do it through Kickstarter made donations privately. So I think we did like somewhere around like 38, 39.
Wow. Yeah. And so you shared that story with me. I jumped on board. We raised the funding. That was my contribution. That's why I am associate producer of Finding Sandler.
But you were very instrumental, like in that whole campaign. I mean, like you were with me on every little thing we did. You remember you even got the Towson Tower Light to come out and do like an interview or something. You remember that?
I do, now that you say that. Oh my God, you're right.
We did like press releases together and like all those free ones because we had no money, remember? And it was a lot of work. And like you really were instrumental in helping raise that goal. In fact, like you got the big donor that like got us to the end where all we needed was like a couple $100 to go over after you got that big donor, which was huge.
10 grand.
10K. Yeah.
10K. Yeah. I remember. And Kickstarter at the time was like, you lose all of the money if you don't get to your goal. Yeah.
So we didn't hit 35. Everybody would have gotten their money back.
You would have been calling all those people and be like, hey, I didn't make the goal, but can you send me the money?
Can you send it to me on the side? Yeah. I don't know if I told you about this, but after the campaign, I ended up bringing on a company to help post-produce the movie, but they didn't do what, they were contracted to do. And I ended up having to sue them for the money back. Did
you get the money back?
I got a good majority of it back. Yeah, wow. I won. But here's the thing. It was like a 6-year like arbitration. It was like they kept drawing it out. And then we won the arbitration not long before the pandemic hit. And then we put it into the courts. When you win an arbitration award, it then needs to be turned into a judgment by the courts for you to collect if the company is not willing to pay. And they weren't coming up to pay anything, or at least not what they were supposed to pay. And so once COVID hit, the court stopped. So it took another 3 years. We literally just collected the money maybe like 3 or 4 months ago. So think about this for a second here. 2012, let's just say 2013, we did the campaign. I think it ended in 2013. It's 2022 now, and the money just finally came back. I had no money to work with. So everybody that helped out on the project, even after the Kickstarter, basically helped out because they loved the project and wanted to be a part of it. So lucky. I'm like so lucky and blessed that people actually gave a shit about the project. Am I allowed to curse on here?
You can curse on here. Okay. Well, the story, Finding Sandler, is super quirky. It's about regrets and resiliency, I think, is even thread through the story. I heard recently a stats that apparently that if people do know the end of the movie, it actually doesn't affect their desire to watch the movie.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
I always felt like I can't give away the ending of the movie because people are going to want to go see what happens and how it ends. And,
apparently that's not going to stop them from wanting to see it.
That's interesting.
Can you tell the story?
I could tell the synopsis very quickly. Yeah. In 1998, I got a job after college on the movie Big Daddy, starring my hero, Adam Sandler. And the night of the premiere for The Waterboy, he wanted to wear clothing from the set of Big Daddy. The premiere was in Manhattan, and that's where Big Daddy was shot, at least the good majority of it. So my boss, she was the costume designer, which is kind of funny because like I am not a fashion guru and I'm colorblind. So, working for a costume designer was pretty funny, but I was basically her driver. So she said, "Hey, David, Adam wants to wear clothing from the set. Can you drop these off at his apartment, give them to the doorman, and then take home this girl, Autumn. She was another PA in my department. Then you could take the car back and go home for the night." I was like, okay, great. So I go to Adam's apartment and I double park the car and I tell Autumn, "Hey, I'll be right back." And this is 1998. I'm like a poor 22-year-old kid straight out of college with no cell phone because they weren't like, not everybody had a cell phone back in 98. So I go into the building and I hand the clothes to the doorman and he goes, "Hey, just bring them up to Adam." I was like, okay, fine. So I went up to. Are you
excited at this moment?
I was kind of like, I'm not supposed to be up there. And like Autumn's waiting in the car double parked. And, I was kind of just like, yeah, it'll be cool. I'll drop it off. But I wasn't really expecting much, So he lived on like one of the really high floors in the building, like 40 something floor or whatever. So I'm like, it's delayed in the elevator, getting up there, finally get up to his floor and, walk down the hallway, knock on the door with a big garment bag over my shoulder. And all of a sudden from behind the door, I hear like yelling, "Who is it? What do you want?" And it's, like at that point I already knew that's Adam and he's fucking with me in some capacity. And I'm like, "Oh, it's Dave. I'm just a PA here to deliver your clothes for the premiere." So he opens the door and he's got this big smile on his face. And he's like, "Hey man, you want to come in and hang out and have a drink?" And I like totally froze, because here I am thinking like, okay, Autumn's in the car. It's double parked. My boss is going to fucking fire me. And if I stay, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to lose my job. And I said, "Look, I'd love to, but I can't. I got Autumn in the car. I got to drive her home and I got to drop off the car." And that was, so I said no. And I never actually put this in the movie, this part of it, but there's like a little more to the story. Behind Adam happened to be his assistant, John Loughran. I don't know if you know who he is. If you've seen the movie, like Big Daddy, he's one of the guys that are friends with Adam. In The Waterboy, he's the guy with that like googly eye, the big guy, like the football player with the weird eye. Mm-hmm. He's in a lot of Sandler's movies. Anyway, John was there. And he and I used to bullshit at the breakfast truck. So we had a rapport. And he's like, "Hey, Dave, why don't you just come in at least and check out the balcony?" So I went in, they walked me past the living room. And in the living room happened to be his girlfriend at the time, Jackie, who he's married to now. So I like walk by, "Hey, nice to see you." Go with the two of them out to the balcony, which has this like ridiculous view of Manhattan. It's a massive balcony that like goes around the building from what I recollect. And I was like, "This is really great, but I got to go." And I ended up leaving and that was it. I never had the chance to actually hang out with Adam again. And so fast forward 8 years, I had turned 30. It was 2006. My birthday's in January. And I remember like my ex-girlfriend threw this like 30th surprise party for me. And like when I walked in, I had no clue that everybody was there and they all like, "Surprise!" Like the only thing that went through my head at that point, besides the fact that I was like, this was really cool, was I'm not where I want to be in my life at age 30. At that time, I had my girlfriend, I had 2 dogs. We were living in my grandmother's basement apartment. I was a producer at a Catholic TV station and I'm Jewish. I just wasn't where I thought I would be in my life at age 30. And not that I didn't appreciate where I was, but I always wanted to be making movies. And this was just such a far cry from what I wanted to do. And that summer of 2006, I would have these nights where I'd kind of toss and turn in bed thinking what if I stayed and hung out with Adam Sandler? Would you have given me any advice? Would you have said something that would have triggered me to do something or go down another path? What if, and it's funny, I kind of equate that situation in my life to somebody let's just say in the tech world that could have had a chance to hang out with Steve Jobs before he passed away and did get, decide not to work. Somebody in finance that could have hung out with Warren Buffett and didn't, you know what I mean? So it was always this thing that I just regretted. And that summer I had this dream one night, and in my dream, I went to California looking for Adam, and somehow in my dream, I found him. We started walking and talking, and I woke up. And when I woke up, I had this idea in my head immediately that I wanted to do something about the whole situation, or I just regret it for the rest of my life. So I decided that I was going to make a documentary film. I was going to call it Finding Sandler. And I was going to go on a quest to try and find Adam and have this drink that I passed up back in 1998. And it's funny, I probably woke up at 5 a.m. in a sweat. And I immediately called my business partner at the time, this guy, Dan, and he answered the phone, which I wasn't sure if he was going to. And he's like, hello. I'm like, dude, I just had this dream. I want to go to California. I want to find Adam Sandler and have the drink that I passed up in 1998. He's like, dude, can we talk about this later? I'm still sleeping. And I was so wired on this. I went into so besides having my own production company at the time with Dan, my business partner, I was also a producer at the station, like I mentioned. So I went in to the station all wired. And I'm my associate producer of this cooking show that I was producing, I went up to him. His name was Vinny. I'm like, Vinny, I just had this dream. Da, 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 da. I told him the whole story. And he's like, dude, that's awesome. Let me help you out. I'm in, whatever you need. And then all of a sudden people I would tell the story to, and some people were like, you're fucking crazy, dude. Don't even bother. Worst idea ever. And then others were like, I'll help you. How can I help you? What can I do? Not even asking for money, just I'll help you. We want to see you accomplish this somehow. And then we just started randomly shooting the movie as we gained people to help out. And that was it. So that's pretty much the story. The long-winded version, even though I said it was going to be short.
Yeah. Well, you got to get in all those bits and pieces. I remember, and there was years ago, in 2016, I had moved to Los Angeles and I was working in the dating space. So I was meeting lots of people. I had started doing, I was doing Underground Unattached at the time, which was a curated dating event. And I connected with somebody who worked in a stylist, a wardrobe department, funny, at Barney's. And at the time I was currently single, and she was a stylist for Jim Carrey, or her friend was a stylist for Jim Carrey. And one day she reached out to me and said, hey, so Jim Carrey, he's single. Would you be interested in being connected with him? And she shared my picture with Jim Carrey, and Jim was like, yeah, I'll meet her. And I said no. I was.
You could have been Christina Carrey right now.
I could have been Christina Carrey. At the time, it was I was in a different stage in my life of beginning my entrepreneur journey. I just moved to Los Angeles. I was bootstrapping a company. And
did you marry yourself by then?
I had married myself. Yep. I had already had my own wedding.
Jim Carrey was fucked from the beginning.
Yeah. And he had that, his ex had committed suicide. So he was also I imagine in the healing process, there was a lot of, it seems like not only was Jim Carrey and the world was so big, his world seemed so big to me. And also we have probably about a 20-year age difference between the two of us. And I couldn't fathom how my world would fit with his world. And so I said no. However, I have, after I did that, I was like, I could have at least had dinner with Jim Carrey. It didn't have to be like a full on. I didn't have to rush to consider if Jim Carrey was my life partner. But I think my nerves also got in the way of like the bigness of Jim Carrey.
Could have just gone on the date. I mean, this is what overthinking things does. See what I'm saying here? Like you overthink it way too much. And, now you're not Christina Carrey. You're still Christina Weber.
I like being Christina Weber, though. Remember, I did marry myself. So
you did, yeah.
I like being Christina Weber.
How unfortunate. Do we need to make a movie called Finding Carrey and like make it? Dude, that would actually be really fun. I don't know. So there was, besides Finding Sandler, there was a movie years ago called My Date with Drew, where this guy, Brian Herzlinger, he loved Drew Barrymore and decided to like try and go on a date with her. So I wonder if like this would probably be a little revolutionary here, because I don't know if any crazy women like yourself have gone after somebody that they passed something up with, and it might actually be of interest to people.
I think it would be a great movie. I can't say that I envision Jim Carrey being my significant other, but just for a date. Just for a date. You're right. What I gather from your story is that it's about the journey, not necessarily the destination. Because, I mean, 10 years, first off, I still don't even know if you had to have had the drink with Adam Sandler at this point, had some interaction with Jim Carrey at this moment. And I know I've seen the movie, the final movie. I believe it's the final movie. I don't know if there's been any additional add-ons.
Nothing additional yet.
Nothing additional yet. No. Can you speak any into that?
I don't want to give it away. I know you think that giving away the ending of a movie, doesn't make people want to see it. But I want people to kind of see it and be able to then make up their mind of how they feel about everything that happens and transpires in the film.
Okay. Well, here's where my thoughts were going.
Yes.
Of the journey versus the destination. There's so much that was worked up through that period of time to when you do get to that moment with Adam Sandler. Is it even worth it?
Well, I did get to meet Adam. I did get to meet Adam, and I would say, it wasn't exactly what I expected, but he seemed like a nice guy. I mean, let's keep in mind for a second here that you and I are just like kind of regular people, right? We could walk on the street and nobody's going to bother us. They're going to be like, who the hell are these two schmucks? They might be like, oh, they look like nice people, but they're not going to hound us for an autograph, want to take pictures with us or anything like that. Right. So when you're dealing with like celebrities, like an Adam Sandler, like a Jim Carrey, they don't have the same lives as we do. They don't have the same privacy that we do. So it's different. You know what I mean? Their lives are different because of the celebrity. Like, I don't know if have you watched the like Harry and Meghan documentary yet?
I have not.
So my wife and I started watching it, and it's like their lives are just, it's crazy. Now, listen, I mean, they're making a fortune off everything, but they have to deal with the press, and anything they do can be misconstrued in a certain way or scrutinized, you know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing with like a celebrity. So yeah, I thought Adam was a nice guy. I felt like he was a little nervous, like, oh, what do these guys maybe have on us, have on me? We didn't have anything bad on him. He's a nice guy. People like him. I mean, the worst thing that we heard about Adam Sandler in our whole quest was, it was funny. We went to Manchester, New Hampshire, where Adam grew up. In fact, we screened our movie in the Manchester International Film Festival in New Hampshire this year. And it was a huge audience of like 200 people. Really cool. They really welcomed us in the hometown. And the worst we heard from Sandler there about Sandler there was like this one girl who basically said that her her brother-in-law used to beat up Adam because he was a smart mouth. That was what she said.
That was the worst thing that you heard.
That was the worst thing I heard. But yeah, I think they were nervous. Like, oh, what do these guys have on us? Or, is there something that they're digging up that shouldn't come up? You know what I'm saying? And that's what it's like being a celebrity. You don't know, what's going to get thrown out there.
Totally. Well, it's this whole idea of putting somebody on a pedestal. Yeah. And that's essentially what it's done, is you put them on a pedestal, and then because I felt that a little bit with Jim Carrey, in the sense of like, who was I? What was I going to say to him? What would we talk about? How would we relate?
It's a regular conversation.
Yeah. And in that pedestal is that, we almost we disconnect ourselves from celebrities.
Well, it's also because
they don't have the greatest human experience, and we don't have the greatest human experience because we're idolizing people that are in this strange experience of being idolized.
Well, when I did meet with Sandler, I mean, I treated him like I would treat anyone else. I mean, I had a normal conversation with him. I just told him what I was doing. And, he asked me some questions like, oh, what have you been up to these last 8 years or whatever it was. And, he was polite in that regard and stuff like that. And I just the conversation was more about what I was up to and, with the movie and the conversation ended with, oh, so what do you need from me? You and I are supposed to meet at the end of this thing or what, and I was like, oh, you were supposed to have a drink. It's a really cool conversation. I mean, the fact that I got to him and did have the conversation with him was closure enough for me in the movie, to be able to say, okay, I can move on from this no matter what, whether he does the drink or has the drink with me or doesn't, I can move on at the end of this. I got to him. And it's not that easy. When I got to him, he took me backstage to the Regis and Kelly show at the time. I'm dating this, but it's true. They took me backstage, off the street to come backstage to talk to him. So it's not everybody gets that opportunity. As far as your Jim Carrey thing, yeah, I definitely think there's a potential movie there, Weber.
Potentially. The guy who did My Date with Drew, I did send him a message on Instagram, and I was like, hey, maybe the three of us all get together and we do this.
Really?
Finding Sandler meets
oh my God,
My Date with Drew.
Yeah. No, I actually reached out to that guy because I wanted to interview him for my movie. So I'd never seen My Date with Drew. When I went into the office that day, when I had the dream and I told that guy, Vinny, he's like, dude, there's a movie that's very similar to that. You got to see it. And I was like, oh, and he mentioned My Date with Drew. And I was like, after I finally got to see it, a few weeks later, I was like, oh, that's kind of similar to what my concept is. So, and I had reached out to Brian through email also, I found his email online or something, and the guy never responded. So I was like, fuck it. He's probably not interested in, collaborating with anybody I had no idea. I mean, at that time he was working I think on Leno or one of those shows had him walking around with a microphone and interviewing people, So.
Yeah. And I mean, today now after COVID and the chaos that we're can see unfolding all around us, I imagine the separation is even harder to break through. And somebody could look at it and be like, and it's also opposite. It just depends on, I guess, each person's own individual life journey as it unfolds. I can say though, I think that it would be fun to do Christina's Date with Drew Carrey. However, I don't.
Drew Carrey is a different. Yeah, don't mess that up. If we get the drink, I mean, if we get the date for you, you can't call him Drew Carrey.
Jim Carrey.
There is a Drew Carrey, but
you're right. I put them all together.
I like that Christina's Date with Jim or Christina's date, because I don't think you'll be able to use his full name. So it's gotta be. Yeah, you could only go so far with that. I don't know if you could use the full name. Finding Sandler. I don't know if I could call it Finding Adam Sandler. I think they could probably sue me if they wanted to.
Maybe call the movie Christina Carey.
Put Christina potentially Carey.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it would be a fun.
It would be a fun adventure.
I mean, you're definitely quirky enough to pull it off. The question is, how do we pull it off? How do we go about it? That would be the thing.
What would be, I think, a hit and an easy way to go is get him on this podcast.
I mean, yeah, you'd have to try and reach out to his agency on that for that, but that wouldn't make a good feature. What we need to do is we got to figure it out. We should definitely talk about it, though. I think it could be fun. We need to get some financing. Any people out there want to finance Christina's journey to have a date with Jim Carrey, please reach out to wedeepen.com for more information.
Let's really talk about regrets, though. How do you think that somebody knows if it's a real regret that they're holding on to?
I think if you feel it for a number of years and it's still kind of, aching after a certain amount of time, then it is. I definitely have a couple other regrets in my life, more so on how I reacted in certain situations, with people, and that kind of stuff, but not like the Sandler thing. That was a different, that was completely different level stuff. That was just more I feel like a moron, and everybody told me I was an idiot for passing up the drink. So yeah, it gets to you, but I don't feel like I hold too many regrets, honestly. The Finding Sandler thing obviously made a great movie and there was a regret there, but I don't hold too much regret in. I mean, I feel like sometimes I'll even reach out to somebody if I feel like I've wronged them in any kind of way, years later. There are two moments that I remember. There's two people that I always felt like I handled the situation. I could have handled the situation better than I did. And I've reached out to them and made amends with both of them. It was business stuff too, just business, stupid business fighting and whatever. Well, you have a lot of regrets?
To go back and clean stuff up. I don't have regrets. What I have is what ifs. And there is this, oh my God, I can't believe I'm considering even sharing this right now. But I have this one what if that is come to light recently. And so I did a TV show, X-Rated, last year, August of 2021. It released on the Peacock network. It's me and 3 of my ex-boyfriends, and they rate me in areas of seduction, affection, initiation, kissing, communication. And I had rated myself before going on the show, and they reveal those results of how Christina rated herself, right, and how her ex-boyfriends rated her, and then the combination of their ratings about me in specific areas.
How'd you do? How far off were you?
I think it was actually interesting as they revealed the results, because we all had taken the survey probably 3 months prior to recording the show. And they seemed shocked as the ratings would come up. One of the guys had given me a 9 or 10 in communication. And then Andy Cohen, because Andy Cohen was the host of the show, and Andy Cohen is like, well, that seems really good. And the guy's like, no, it's not good. It's not good that she's a 10 in communication, because she would have been, him and I were never intimate. We never had sex, but he said, if her and I had sex, she would be like, let's go to therapy and discuss each of the, all the nuances of our sex life. So funny. He flipped the script on my 10 for communication and turned it into a negative.
Yeah.
And then I got rated really highly in spontaneity. Did I say that word correctly?
I think so.
Okay. Spontaneity.
I'm not Webster's.
Okay.
Let's just go with yes, it worked.
But some of the others, I got rated a little low in initiation, which to me, I was like, oh yeah, well, you guys weren't the right guys. When I'm with the right guy, I'll initiate more. So it was a fun experiment to be. Was
it weird, being with the exes, or are you still in contact with them in a friendly way?
Well, they all said yes to doing the show, and there was definitely love between us. These were shorter relationships, or one was a relationship that never really began. Actually, I would say almost all of them were relationships that never fully began. It ended before we got past the threshold to like, let's do this and engross our families and really dive into this.
So it was like more like people you were seeing as opposed to like real boyfriends.
Yes. I mean, how do you
scam your way onto that show?
How do you define the word boyfriend, girlfriend?
I mean, I think you have to have the talk.
These were all pre-talked. I mean, they were all like, we knew what we were doing.
But did you have the talk?
No, because they were all in the motion of like, that
doesn't count. You were seeing them.
Until you
have the talk, you're seeing them.
I was, yeah.
So how did you scam your way onto the show with just people that you were seeing?
I didn't scam my way on the show. They called me and recruited me for the show.
I'm kidding.
I got recruited. And when they pitched me on it, I've had 2 creative projects in mind that are similar to the idea. So the show was based upon a girl who used to go on dates. Of course, it was someone in New York City. She used to go on dates and she would send surveys to her exes.
Oh my God. That's funny.
Yeah. So that could be
like a good like movie or series or something.
Hence X-rated on the Peacock Network.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And so when they called me for the show, the concept was of interest to me. So I've always like I've had envisioned doing a book at one point in my life where I would take his story, her story, couples who have broken up. And so as a reader, you'd be able to read how he interprets the story, how she interprets the story. And then you'd have a psychologist who would then be the 3rd chapter, who would essentially give her perspective of their stories. And then you would give the couple the opportunity to give a final summary after they were able to read the other partner's story of the relationship and the psychologist's analysis of their relationship. And you would do a few couples within that, whether it's male, female, or woman within that. Wow. And then from there, so that concept has been with me for some time. And then I evolved it into a series, which could be told not linear. And you would essentially take one woman and you would see her as she moved through 5 of her relationships. So each episode would be her and a different man. And then season 2 would take one of the men that she dated, and you would follow him through numerous relationships that he's had. And you'd all start to see them interweaving together. And it would offer the answer to the question, are we really evolving? Are we just repeating the same shit over and over and over again? And the only way that I think we can know that information is by viewing it through the former relationships or exes.
Interesting. You know, the thing is, though, here's the truth. Like when you were on that show, the show that you were on, like you knew the cameras were rolling. So you're kind of like hamming it up a little for the camera, you know? Similarly, like I think any of these people that are dating on these dating shows, like 90 Day Fiance or whatever, my wife watches that kind of garbage. I don't mean to call it garbage to the people that produce it. It's people watch it and it's fun, but I'm not into that kind of stuff, but my wife likes it. But it's like those people know the cameras are rolling, like they're acting it up. And a lot of stuff in reality shows are kind of like, you know, it's kind of set up. Like the Kardashians know where they're going and everything's set up for them to get there and do their thing. You know what I mean?
Yes,
I feel like
I think that's a yes. And for me, when I have friends who watch that show, they tell me that, wow, that was you. That was like,
which one? 90 Day Fiance?
No, the show that I did, X-rated.
Okay.
Like
okay.
That was Christina on the show.
I'm sure it was you, but you knew the cameras were rolling. So you're going to like put it out a little more. You know what I mean? Like, for example, finding Sandler, like, you know, just a quick example. I don't want to keep going into this, but like, you remember the Emerald scene where I went to Emerald Lagasse and tried to ask him to cook an appetizer if I had the drink with Adam Sandler?
Yes.
Like I wasn't going to walk away from that situation without having an opportunity to chat with him because I knew the cameras were rolling and I needed to have like great content like that would make people want to stay and watch more. So,
well, it's inspiring you to do the things that you actually really want to do. It's giving you more courage because you're there to create a story. But the thing is, our whole lives, but our whole lives are, I like to live my life as though I am creating a story. Right. So why not do it anyway? The only thing different on that show, because there were the cameras in front of me and I had these three men who I respect and admire, and they were essentially doing the show because they love me. They're like, okay, I'll do this for Christina, because here it is of like, I'm coming on, national television to be your ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
And there
at least it wasn't like on Jerry Springer or Maury Povich.
Totally. And there were times when I knew the show, I was the subject matter, but there were times when I wanted to be like, well, you guys you're the reason it's all fucked up. Like, it's your fault and your fault.
But you didn't say it because you were on national TV. I
was on national TV and I wanted to be respectful to these men and I was the subject matter.
Really
I wouldn't want to throw them under the bus. But what they did do, they didn't tell any of us until we arrived on set that day. And they're like, oh, by the way, at the end of the show, we're going to line all your exes up and they're going to be able to bid for your attention and for you to get back together with them. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, they didn't sign up for this.
A little surprise at the end there.
I have to reject them at the end of the show. Anyway, so why I bring that up of regret. So last night I am catching up with two girlfriends, and one of them is, I was in a relationship from 25 to 30, and he was the one person that I nearly like we had our families, like we were close. I was
real boyfriend.
He was a real boyfriend. Yes, he was a real boyfriend. And we ended, we were young, and he got into a relationship pretty shortly after I made the final decision and final, whatever it may be. But I was like, no, I want to go explore other things. And probably within the next 6 to 8 months, he ended up in a relationship and was in that relationship for, I think, nearly a decade. So last night on the phone, one of my girlfriends, they shares, oh, he's single again. And they're telling me to reach out to him. And I'm like, what? I'm starting to feel all this pressure from them. And there's actually somebody who I'm newly seeing right now who I'm interested in. It's not a quote unquote, as David Seth Cohen would define it, as a boyfriend yet in this moment.
Yes.
I'm seeing him and I am excited to get back to Austin. I'm in Maryland right now with family for the holidays and to explore a deeper connection with him. But at this moment in time, I'm currently single. And so
does he know about the ex-boyfriend being single?
There's no I mean, this is again, this is not a...
No, I know, but you just made it public. So if he listens to your podcast, now he's going to find out that you had an ex-boyfriend that's currently single.
Everybody has an ex-boyfriend that's currently single, or an ex-girlfriend who's currently single. It's all about making choices and decisions. And
yes, I'm totally messing with you, by the way. Just
don't get me in my vulnerability, because I'm like, I can't, even just sharing this right now in a moment.
When you get off this podcast with me, you better call him and be like, by the way, I just thought you should know that I just kind of aired out about this ex-boyfriend being single, but I'm not going to reach out to him because I want to explore things with you.
No, it's not about, I'm just sharing. I would probably tell him that I had an experience last night where two girlfriends badgered me to go and so I guess I could say is, as you said, we talked about regrets. It's not regrets. There's almost what ifs. We have what ifs in our life.
Yeah, there are a lot of those. Yeah.
And the what ifs are, I think with him and I, we had a significant connection, and I was very close to his mother, who had since passed away, and him and I, in a connection of a friendship, that could be a friendship. I don't know. Am I willing to even reach out and to inquire within that, because it's been a decade, and then so then you have to also consider of moving forward in your life, like the things that, do you go backwards or do you go forwards? And is forwards backwards? So it's all about like the what ifs, and we want to close the loops and put it all out there because we live this one life. And you're recently married and have a new baby.
A newborn. Yeah. Well, I think he's not considered a newborn anymore after 3 months. It's like, I don't know what the terminology is, but he's 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah. And to go into that experience, and I hope you went into that experience without the what ifs. I remember there was a guy in my, like I was connected to with years and years ago in New York City, and he was courting me at one point, and I never had jumped into it because he actually began courting me very strongly when him and my other ex and I were on a break. And eventually like he got together with his now wife. And gosh, I fucking share a lot of stuff, but I'm just can't help myself by being totally honest. But he just proposed, and the ring was beautiful. And I gave him a hug and congratulated him like, wow, the ring is so beautiful. And he whispered in my ear and he said, it could have been you.
Oh, wow. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And first off, that
almost like a smack in the face of his fiance.
It scared me for like, at that point I was like, what the fuck? Like how, like who do I trust in this life? I never want a man to ever say that, like, again,
it's horrible. It's horrible. Yeah. Wow. I hope his wife doesn't listen to the podcast.
I don't reveal any names. I don't reveal any names. And again, you trust God. I'm just speaking the truth and my own personal experiences. And that's all that I can share. And that's what I aim to do, is be fully transparent in my life.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I don't have any relationship regrets, like as far as the dating life. I'm actually super happy that I met my wife. She's a wonderful woman. I wouldn't want it any other way. And I have a kid now, which is like the coolest thing. I can't believe I'm a 46-year-old dad. Like I'm changing diapers at 46. I mean, there are older fathers than me, but still, I never thought I'd be a dad this late if I ever was going to be one.
Oh my God, really but you cool. Still look so young.
I mean, geez, I gained like 15 pounds since the kid was born. I got to start getting back to the gym.
Do it. Start lifting that baby up and down, up and 15. Down.
Yeah, I should start curling him and using him as like a barbell. He's not that heavy though.
Remember, you dropped a bomb on me recently about our relationship, of our working relationship, when you were in a previous relationship.
The ex thing. Yeah, my ex was jealous of that we were friends. Like, because you called me at 11 o'clock at night one night when we were doing the Kickstarter campaign, and she was at my place, and you had called, and I answered the phone. I was like, hey, what's up? And she's like, and when we got off the phone, she's like, how could you be talking to another girl at 11 o'clock at night? I'm like, she's a friend of mine. I've known her for like 5 years. And she like flipped out on me. At that point in my relationship with her, I should have ended it because of the fact that, like, how could somebody be that jealous over like a phone call that I had? Like, it wasn't like we were like sex talking. We were just talking about business stuff and like, hey, what are we doing tomorrow? And blah, 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 blah. And it was just so awkward. It was really awkward. And I didn't tell you that for a long time. She basically, we stopped talking for a while, you and I, and it was because of her, because she would like always frown on the fact that I would be on the phone with you or we'd be having a conversation about anything. And I kind of just I wanted to keep the relationship going, which again, like I should have ended it in advance, knowing that it was going to be that kind of a situation. Yeah. So I think I told you that like a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 years ago now, something like that. But I remember telling you after I got out of that relationship, or when I got into the new one, my wife, and my wife knows that story. I told her that story. I'm like totally transparent with my wife. She's the coolest. She's so cool. She's so easy to deal with. And like, not jealous. And it's so nice being in a relationship where there's trust involved on both ends. It's like, it's huge for your relationship podcast. That's what you need is trust and friendship and respect.
Totally. And to you, how would you define trust in a relationship?
Trust. So for example, I was just in LA by myself, stayed at a buddy's place. My wife didn't even question what I was doing. Why would she? I'm not going to go do anything. I have no reason to. But like, she trusts me, go do whatever you want. Oh, like if I said, I'm going out to dinner with Christina, like you're an old friend, she's not going to be like, oh, well, what time are you going to be home? Or, oh, like, why do you have to go out why do you have to go out and hang out with your friend and go to a dinner? Like, she wouldn't do that. She trusts me. She knows that I'm in it with her and I'm not looking to go elsewhere. I think for a relationship, I think that's a big part of it. I think a lot of people break up because there's not trust. But I also understand the opposite side because people have been cheated on and their trust has been broken. Mm-hmm. But I think the problem is like every person you date is a new person. So you got to give them the benefit of the doubt.
So true.
When I first met my wife, I was impossible. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do. It took me a while to like really be ready to settle into an actual relationship with her. And we were dating for a little while, but it took me a while to have the actual talk. It was like a number of months because we met like about maybe like a month and a half or 2 months after my ex and I broke up. And I didn't go on a lot of dates after that. Like after my ex and I broke up, because I had moved out of the house that I was in into Manhattan, and I just kind of wasn't really ready to date. I just wasn't. It was hard. It was a very hard situation for me. It's like the beginning of 2019. So
there's a podcast that I did, Vulnerable Communication. I believe it's maybe episode 58 with Maya Diamond. And she is an attachment expert. And she shared how men, when dating, are generally seeking connection. Men are out in the world seeking connection. And women are generally out in the world seeking long-term relationships. And so you have those two dynamics that are constantly at play. And it sounds as though with your now who's your wife, that in that beginning period of time, you're enjoying the connection. And then the more time that you've spent together, the bonding, like you're getting closer and closer and closer. And so then you realize, I keep wanting to connect with her. I keep wanting to connect. This connection is growing and it's building. And then comes the conversation. Now, when the conversation did come about, who brought it up?
I think I did. She was on vacation and we were texting, and I sent her a message saying something to the fact of like her being my girlfriend. And she was like, yeah, whatever it was. I don't remember the exact conversation, but that was pretty much it. But I think like, for me, once we met, like we didn't go on a real date. Our first date wasn't like a real crazy date. I met her at like Bryant Park in front of the fountain with my dog. I didn't want to take girls on dates at that time. I didn't want to like waste my time, my money, nothing, like, cause being a guy, we're expected to pay for everything all the time. And, I was just like, I wanted to be very choosy with going on dates. And so we met at the park, and then it was a really cool conversation. I had really enjoyed hanging out with her. And when we were leaving, I said, hey, you want to get together like on Monday and go out for like dinner? And then I was like, okay, I'll take her out on a date. And so we went out, and then we started hanging out like a few times a week. And it just, she was just cool. She was like easy to hang with, like, didn't like bug me about things, and like just kind of let me go at my pace, which I liked, because a lot of people like nag and they want to go at their pace. Oh, if we're not doing this by then, it's like, she was just chill. And it was easy. It was very easy. And so that's kind of what I really liked about it. And it's funny, we got married like during the pandemic. We're in the New York Post for like a quickie wedding. We got married like literally during the pandemic at the Delray Beach courthouse. And we still haven't had our like big wedding yet. I have no idea when we're going to do it now that we have a baby. But yeah, no, I'm really grateful that I met her. And it's funny, I met her through like a dating app, which is interesting.
Oh, so you when you told the story, you neglected to include a dating app. You said Bryant Park, Fountain.
Well, that's where we went. That's where we met up for the first time.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, but I met her on a dating app. And it was funny. We didn't even have like much of a conversation on the dating app. It was like literally, I wrote her something. She wrote me back. I said, like she asked me a question. Actually, this will go back to what we were talking about earlier. On the app, there was a question about like, what do you regret? And I wrote passing up a drink with Adam Sandler. So when I texted her, I messaged her on the app, I wrote something like, you're cute or something stupid, whatever, hey, how you doing? Whatever it was. She wrote back, I can't believe you passed up a drink with Adam Sandler. I love Billy Madison. It's one of my favorite movies. Why did you pass up the drink? And I wrote back, I'll tell you when we hang out. And like, she goes, okay, she goes, here, okay, here's my number. And then I texted her and then we made a plan to get together. And that was pretty much it. And I didn't even speak to her throughout the whole week. We made a plan for like the following Saturday or something to get together. And she didn't even text me. And like the night before I messaged her, are we still getting together tomorrow? That was it. Then so it was interesting. Like I said, no pressure. It was nice.
I love seeing that story unfold on social media because we do get to, this is one of the highlights, benefits of social media, is we get to stay connected and see the growth in the people that we care about's lives, even though we might not be able to talk to them on a normal daily basis. Yeah. Now, you mentioned men are expected to pay.
Yes.
And
you don't feel that way?
I mean, I do. Yes. I believe it. How do you reconcile? How do you feel about that?
I mean, I think it's stupid. I think like, don't we have like equal rights for everything? Right. So why is the guy having to pay for the girl all the time for like dinners and whatever else? Listen, my wife was generous. She would always like offer, and sometimes she would pay, like, as we started dating more and more, and she was cool like that. But like, there are a lot of, I don't want to sound like a dick, but there are a lot of women out there just that expect a guy to pay for dinner every time or, everything. And it's like, it's such a shitty standard for men. Like, no offense, but like a lot of women do really well and make a lot of money. Like, why are the guys paying for everything? Like, we have the whole movement. And listen, I love women, so I'm for women making as much money or more than men. Like, I don't, I'm for anything that anybody wants to do that's not harming anybody and that's equal for everybody. But it's not equal for men when it comes to dating. Absolutely not.
Well, how about some reframes here? Because in those, because you say you're expected to pay, but then with this relationship that you've now you're married, you also say in that same context that you paid. She contributed every once in a while, but you did pay.
She would always offer.
Okay. Yeah.
She was. I think that
so. Is that the thing? Is like women should make sure that they're offering.
I think it would be cool. Like, again, it's such a weird thing. Like, the guy has to pay. I don't even want to get into it because it's like probably a really bad conversation. You should delete this whole part of this.
No, let's have it.
Conversation.
This is good.
But I know. I think it's like, I just think it's ridiculous. Why can't a woman take me out? What the hell? I'm pretty cool guy. I have a good sense of humor. I'll make you laugh. You should pay me for my time. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, here's how I see it. If we take the brains back to when humans are generally dating, typically a woman is seeking long-term connection and a man is seeking connection. And
I don't know if that's always true, though.
It's not always true. Of course, there's not.
I feel like there are a lot of guys out there that like will try and pursue women and then they don't want them. You know what it is? It's a lot of people are just so picky. And instead of like people realizing that, hey, they should be with somebody that can make them laugh and that they can have a great conversation with, they have all these expectations. Like I have friends that are in their mid to upper 40s at this point that are still single. And there's a reason for that. It's because like either you're too picky, like, and you need to have this, like, for example, people will shun somebody out for small reasons and won't give other people chances. Like, I think if people gave more people chances, they would be happier. Yeah. Before I got into the relationship with my wife, when I was single, one of my buddies who was married and currently divorced, which is, whatever, but he said, the one thing I would say to you, now that you're single is find somebody that could be your best friend. Everything else, nothing else matters. Find somebody that could be your best friend that you get along with and that you have fun with, because you're going to be with that person for a long time if all works out. And they kind of resonated, you know what I mean? Like, you might be looking in the wrong places for people, or you might have these expectations from people when maybe you should expand your thoughts on who you're dating. I have a couple of really cool friends that, for whatever reason, people don't want to give certain people chances. Maybe somebody's a different race or a different religion, or is too heavy or too thin for their liking, but if they gave these people a chance, maybe they would actually like them and they wouldn't be single anymore.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot inside of, we're all in our own journey.
Yes.
Giving people chances.
Agree.
And best friend, I think, yes, we do want to find someone that we can bond with. And more so, I would even up level that of best friend. It's somebody that you can grow with, somebody that you can practice love with and practice relationship with and be in connection. Now, to go back to my reframe real quick to just make sure I am able to get my little point across. I think when it comes to paying, there's some biological elements that are happening, and it is around where people are at age-wise and what their intentions are. So biologically, in those early dating stages, there is a woman, I think her soul is in this process of can this man support me? If she was to be pregnant and having a baby, can he support a family during that process? And then once the two are more deeply, I know you're looking at me like I'm crazy, but once they're further in, then they merge. They're essentially merging finances and they're becoming partners. But it's this early stage in becoming partners that they're both kind of in this dance of assessing compatibility.
Yeah, but I don't understand how paying for a dinner for a night out.
It's sharing. What's this person's capacity to share? Yeah,
but sharing is both participants being a part of something.
Yeah, but the only money is only one form of energetic. It's a form of energetic that's being shared. There are many forms of energetics that are being shared. Even in the dating process, you have a woman who's pretty much probably taking much more time to get ready, to show up. There's just to say that it doesn't, when we think about money and the expectation to pay, it limits the energetics that is available within that connection that is being shared on a much bigger level.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's crazy. And as far as women getting ready, can we touch on that for a quick second?
Sure.
They're I don't want to be a jerk again, but it's funny. Every time I pass one of those eyelash stores, you know what I'm talking about? Where you can get your eyelashes done. What guy has ever said to a girl, hey, I'm not going to date you because your fucking eyelashes are too small? Women do that stuff because they want to do it. I think women compete with other women more than anything. It's ooh, what guy is ever going to be oh, I'm sorry, babe, I can't date you. Your eyelashes, sorry. They're just too short. You should have really taken 15, 20 minutes to put on the fake ones and walk around. I mean, look, I feel why does it have to take you so long to get ready? Look at me. I don't have any makeup on. I have my hair's done. It took me 5 minutes. I get it. Your hair is longer. It might take a little longer to dry. And I get you're going to put on your makeup and all that. But, again, I just think it's this dating world is crazy. I'm so glad I'm out of it. I'm so glad I'm out of it.
There are stats that say that when they interview both men and women in their older years, the women are the most happiest are the ones who are single, and the men are who are the most happiest are the ones who are in relationship.
Interesting. I mean, I'm very happy. I didn't really love being single. I mean, I did for some time when I was younger, but like as I got older, I didn't really want to be single. But that's why I think I kind of took things so slow with my wife. You know, when I first started dating her, I just wanted to make sure I was comfortable. And you know, when I started dating her, I was like 44. So I mean, I get married till I was 44 when I got married. So I think I met her when I was 43. Something like that.
You're giving all the 40-year-olds hope out there.
I mean, there's definitely hope, but like, stop being so picky. Everybody, like, it's like, you know, give people a chance, you know, there are some good things that you might not see originally if you don't give people chances. I mean, listen, I shouldn't be like acting like I'm perfect. You know, I was pretty picky too when it came to dating, and I ultimately found somebody that, you know, check the boxes for me in a lot of ways, you know, but I don't think, you know, I don't think there's anybody that's perfect out there. I think there's people that are perfect for you, or, you know, like I said, I felt like my wife was like my best friend. Like I didn't want to not hang out with her anymore. You know, I just wanted to hang out with her, and I could hang out with her every day. We hang out every day, you know, whether it's like watching a show together or just like hanging out and like cooking something or whatever it may be. You know, we're always hanging out, and I enjoy her company. There's like no one else I'd rather hang out with. So.
Well, on that note, two things. Brian Howie, Great Love Debate. He's the episode number 2, and his definition of love is when you are connecting with somebody and you realize that you would rather be doing everything with them.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like it's a good way to look at it. I like it. I hope all your listeners that are in their 40s, men and women, find true love. Including you, Christina.
Well, I find true love often. I feel love often. Love to me is easy.
Not that kind of love. I mean, like the relational love,
the forever
you
type
love everybody. Like you're a lover. But I mean, like, you know, a partner, someone that you could just spend the rest of your life with and that you'll be happy with, you know, that checks your boxes.
Jim Carrey,
Finding Carrey. Christina's date with Jim. You definitely need to talk about that offline sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, David. So if somebody wants to see Finding Sandler, where do they go?
They can't see it yet. We just finished, we did the 10th festival. Like, I think I said that before. We've sent it out to a couple others. I don't know if it's going to get in or not. If it does, then I'll make posts about it on like the Finding Sandler Instagram, which is just at Finding Sandler, or my Instagram at David Seth Cohen, or my Facebook at David Seth Cohen, or LinkedIn, same thing. I'll post about it. But right now we're going to start looking to get the film distributed and put it out there. So until it's on any sort of platform, there's really no way for anybody to see it unless it's at a festival. But if anybody in your audience is interested in, you know, distributing it, or there are any distributors out there, they could reach out to me, you know, via email, or, you know, through any of those other channels that I just named, or they could reach out to you and you can make a connection if you think it's right. Cool.
And maybe there is even an opportunity to do private screenings. Can people gather friends and do any private screenings?
It depends. Like I would consider doing it for nonprofit to help them raise money. So if there's like a nonprofit out there that would want to use the film to raise funds for their organization, it's something I would consider working out with them.
How about we do a auction item for Feminine Weapon Day? Private screening.
That they get to see the movie?
They get to a private screening. You and your friends, private screening. We put a minimum bid and they bid.
Where are we doing it?
Where?
Yeah, where? Where's the screening going to be?
Wherever they decide, they're going to pay for it.
I would be open to a conversation about that.
Okay, cool.
The thing is, like, until if it's still doing the festival route, you can't really sell the movie. Like you can't make money.
Yeah, but we'll
off
do
the
it for
movie.
charity, and it'll be a private auction.
Yeah, I would do it for charity.
At the
Absolutely.
10th annual Feminine Weapon Day, with 100% of the net proceeds going to
Is it 10th annual already?
10th annual.
Holy shit, when?
February 2nd in Austin, Texas.
Oh my God.
Come on
wow.
out. 100% of the proceeds to children of abuse, extreme poverty, and human trafficking.
February what?
February 2nd. January 30th is Feminine Weapon Day. For the first time ever, we'll be celebrating on February 2nd, just 3 days after Feminine Weapon Day.
I got to talk to the wife and see if we can
Bring
make
her
the trip.
out. Bring the baby out. Come on.
Oh my God. It's not that easy when you have a little baby. This kid eats every 3 hours. He's a hungry kid.
Yeah. Totally. Bring him out. Okay. Anything else that you wish to share?
No, thank you for having me on. I'm really glad we got to catch up. I think that you should potentially delete some of the conversation that we had earlier.
Which part should we delete?
I don't know. The whole the first date not paying thing. I don't want to get nasty emails later on.
No, this is real life conversations that we share publicly. If anyone should be deleting something, you're the one who called me out on some things and had me share some vulnerable stuff. So if anybody's deleting anything out, it's me. And I think it's all fine because we're all in our own journeys, and we don't own the truth, and we're speaking our own reality and sharing that vulnerably with the world. And, we're not our thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's true. No, but this was really fun. I'm glad we got to catch up a little bit. We need to catch up offline sometime too. And I do want to talk about the Jim Carrey thing. I think it might be fun.
Cool.
We'd have to plan that one out.
Sounds good. We'll talk offline. Thank you, David Seth Cohen. And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Deepen with Christina. Definitely go check out that calendar at wedeepen.com, because while I do love recording this podcast and having you listen to us in far off worlds and lands, what I am most interested is being with you in person and connecting you with other growth-minded people. Check out that calendar, wedeepen.com. Again, if you do like this podcast, please do subscribe, rate it, follow, share it with some friends. It helps more people find it and also helps me to continue to do it. Okay, bye for now. Love you.
Christina Carrey out.